Have you ever seen something from the corner of your eye that wasn't there when you looked again? How about hearing from a friend of a friend that while they were hiking somewhere, they thought they saw something improbable, but when they spoke to a ranger, there was always a simple explanation that left you unsatisfied? My name is Jack, and this is my colleague Chris, and we are senior wardens for the Creature Conservation Initiative. We protect the world from the creatures of superstition and myth, but more importantly, protect those same creatures from the world. Well, hello, people. How are you doing? We are back again. I don't know why, but we are.
That's the question, isn't it? Someone keeps allowing us back on here.
Well, maybe the seniors have stopped listening.
Hopefully.
Maybe. We can
now we can add the real dirty laundry.
Yeah. Do you know about that embezzlement? No. All right. No. For legal reasons, there has never been any embezzling in the CCI. Everything is done 100% out in the open.
Yeah, especially not in the embezzlement department.
Yes, that department has nothing to do with embezzlement.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate naming.
Just like the breaking and entering department has nothing to do with breaking and entering, and larceny department has nothing to do with larceny.
Exactly.
Moving on from that, how are you doing, Chris?
I'm just not doing embezzlement or breaking and entering or any other crimes, so I'm doing extremely well and legal so far, and I have nothing to worry about. How about you?
I am doing pretty well, thank you very much. I have recently moved away from the larceny and embezzlement side of things,
really?
Which obviously was not anything to do with actual larceny and embezzlement. It's just names of departments.
Of course.
So no, genuinely, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you very much. Been reminiscing a little bit this last couple of weeks as we come up towards Halloween.
Ooh, the spooky season.
Yeah, the spooky season. I've been sitting back and thinking about some of the creatures I've dealt with in my past. Because when I started with the CCI, it wasn't a million miles away from Halloween. So when I had that whole situation with the Knucklevi, that was obviously one of my first proper cases, that wasn't too far away from Halloween. And it got me thinking a little bit more about some of the other creatures that I have dealt with around Halloween.
Okay, and I suppose you're going to tell us about one of them in this episode, maybe, probably.
Yes, I'm going to tell you about a creature that has many names and many associations.
That's a theme for most of them at this point.
Yeah. Well, I'll carry on in later episodes at some point to talk about the slightly different regional versions of every one of these creatures. But for today, we're going to stay in my wonderful homeland of the UK, and specifically around England, and talk about a creature that we know as Gabriel Hounds.
Okay, sounds interesting.
Have you ever really come across Gabriel Hounds?
Not that I know of. My first association is like Archangel Gabriel or something along those lines. I don't know if there's a connection there, but don't know that of.
In the myth, there is definitely some connections to Archangel Gabriel, but not directly. It's not something that we're.
So it's not his lapdog.
It's not so much his lapdog, but we'll get onto that a little bit later.
All right.
But the Gabriel Hounds. The reason why I say it's got many names is because they just have many different names.
The Gabriel Hound, the Michael Hound, Steve Hound,
Barry Hound. Yeah. They just have a few different names because it is a creature from quite old English folklore. These creatures started popping up in writings and recorded myth around 1665, but they have definitely existed for a lot longer. But like I say, they've got a few different names just because that's the way in which language evolves over the years.
Sure.
So they have been known as Gabby Ratchets.
That sounds a bit less threatening.
Gabriel ratchets,
Okay, yeah. Something tools.
and sky yelpers.
Sky Helpers. And that sounds kind of cool.
They are very, very large, kind of hellhound looking like things.
Okay, interesting. So large for dogs or large, like, towering over me, threatening to devour me?
Large for dogs is where we kind of go with it.
Okay.
But they have a very, very distinct difference to being, say, like a dog or, one of the kind of mythical dark-coloured dog wolf things that are basically prevalent throughout every single culture. They have one very, very specific difference, and I'm going to challenge you to just have a random guess and tell me what you think.
One difference. They have 3 ears.
No. Have another go.
They have a cool flame pattern in their fur.
Nope. One more go.
They have 6 legs.
Absolutely not.
God
No.
damn it.
They have human heads instead of dog heads.
Oh, of course. Not
Yep.
gonna lie, that suddenly sounds. Not gonna lie, that sounds like a lot less threatening. More on the disturbing side than threatening.
Well, I can agree with you. They are quite disturbing to see, having interacted with them myself. But yeah, it does get slightly worse. They're essentially a muscled, monstrous, but quite emaciated, large black hound-like creature. So very, very strong. You can very clearly see the muscling along their body, and it's very, very powerful. You could almost guess that a little bit like, when you see Hollywood actors who are supposed to be like really, really muscled, so they've dehydrated themselves a lot.
Yeah.
Before taking part in that shoot, and then they're really, really defined musculature. Basically, it's like that. But these creatures are also quite emaciated in their appearance. They are, there's basically no body fat. They're very, very uncomfortable to look at in that way. But the part that really makes them very, very creepy and unsettling is that it's not just a human head. It's basically a baby's human head.
What? But why?
Yeah. So you're talking like a bulge baby face with soulless eyes.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Yep.
I
It's.
wish I had a time machine to go back 20 seconds to when I didn't know this.
Yeah. And imagine seeing them in real life. It's certainly a sight that stays with you.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, that site is going to stay with me, and I haven't even seen them.
Well, I'll send you a picture.
No, please don't. I'm good.
These creatures are very much based around the English lore, so they exist in the UK, they exist in England, but they do have slight variations, or at least cousins, that exist in different parts of the UK. So Wales have like their own different versions of them, or at least associated versions, and I believe so does Ireland. And also, if you just go to different countries, they have them all over the place. Mostly because these creatures are also associated in the lore, in the myth, with the wild hunt. So very much a spectral beast of the end times and of danger and of death that exist pretty much in every single folklore and mythology that exists around the world.
So is that the same wild hunt as in The Witcher? Because that's my only encounter with that.
I know that The Witcher takes the idea of the wild hunt from just, again, various different sources. There are a lot of worlds that have their own idea of this skeletal, spectral hunt that floods the earth and follows through the sky, and as we're going into winter and autumn and the Hallows Eve, that kind of thing. I know that The Witcher they didn't create that idea. I know that for a certain.
Sure.
So, but I don't believe that the hunt dogs that are involved in the Witcher's world are the same, or at
Okay.
least not exactly the same. Mostly because I have played that game myself when I've had some time, and they sure as hell do not have baby faces.
Yeah, luckily they don't.
I think it would probably change the vibe of the game if it did. But
I mean, a little bit.
yes, so you might be wondering where like the ratchet part of the name comes from.
Yes.
This is why I bring up that 1665 is when it first started appearing in literature, purely because the ratchet is actually an Old English word for hounds that hunt by scent.
Oh. Okay, that's surprising.
Yeah, so when you're looking at things like Gabriel Hounds, Gabby Ratchets, Gabriel Ratchets, we're talking something specific followed by a literal description of a hound that hunts by scent.
Oh.
Which is why I said earlier you weren't a million miles away when you were talking about Archangel Gabriel.
Okay. I don't quite see the connection yet, but I'm excited.
They're also known as sky yelpers because they have a strange yapping or yelping noise that can be heard across the dark of the night sky from quite far away. They are
Right.
believed to fly over homes as a augur or a portent of death and misfortune.
So the baby-faced dogs are flying above my home?
Depends. Have you had death and misfortune in your home recently?
Well, not recently, but it's been there.
Have you heard sky yelping?
I don't think so.
I think you've been safe from them.
Great.
But as is normal, especially in England, when you have to talk about folk tales and things, the church has got involved a little bit, and their explanation for them was they were believed to be the souls of unborn children and the ghosts of unbaptized babies floating around the homes of their parents.
They have a lot of open positions for unborn and unbaptized babies.
Yep. But again, in that time, it was a great way to encourage you to have your children baptized.
Sure. I mean, I guess it's fair enough when they have the baby faces, at least there's some kind of connection there.
Obviously, again, I can tell you right from the start, this is not true. But they have been known to be around misfortune and potentially around death. But what we have found is that it seems to be like a self-fulfilling prophecy with them. When someone thinks that they have heard, say, a Gabriel Hound, and someone around them dies, it's usually because they have assumed that they're going to die because of Gabriel Hounds. This only tends to pop up when they're heard around people who are very old or infirm. Other people hear them, but either don't tend to notice them, or it's just not reported that they heard Gabriel Hounds, because again, this is a creature of myth, so people don't know what they're supposed to be hearing. They just hear a weird noise in the night, but nothing happens. Absolutely nothing occurs. They are literally just creatures that exist, and unfortunately, because of their existence, because of what they are, there is a fear that they cause death.
Yeah, but it's basically just a bad reputation that they kind of caught by accident.
Yeah, essentially, it's confirmation bias. It's not that someone died because a Gabriel Hound was in the area. A Gabriel Hound was in the area, and someone died. Is what it is.
Okay. Yeah.
Or at least so far, our research side has not found a connection between a Gabriel Hound actually being in the area and someone dying as a result of it.
I mean, that's a very human thing to do, isn't it? To find causality where there is none.
Exactly. But yeah, so so going on to some of the stories that surround Gabriel Hounds, there are a couple of different stories that are supposed to explain how they came around. There is the story of a gentleman of nobility who lived in Cleveland, who, on his deathbed, ordered that his hunting hounds be killed and buried with him because he loved hunting so much And these hounds were so amazing, so wonderful hunting creatures, and had brought him such good luck that he quite literally didn't want other people to benefit from it. And he wanted them to be with him during eternity so that he could hunt as a ghost with these creatures. And basically his greed...
What the hell?
It is believed that his greed was such, and this awful, awful decision, this awful request that was fulfilled because, again, he was nobility. And as a result, this act was heinous enough that the hounds and he were cursed to become these creatures that hunted across the skies on awful nights. You know, dark and windy, wet and rainy. Essentially the kind of night you would expect to hear an awful sound.
Interesting.
But also, that's just one of the stories. Another story is that in Derbyshire, a squire named Gabriel was so persistent in hunting on a Sunday, the Lord's Day,
Of course.
that he accidentally drove his hounds into a church. This act was seen as such blasphemy that he was cursed to ride out and hunt on stormy nights forevermore with his hounds.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
How do you accidentally drive them into the church? B, since when does the priest or whatever put curses on people? That's news to me.
Hey, I only just recently found out that there is something called holy magic. So...
Okay, interesting.
I think there's a little bit more leeway in religion depending on the situation.
Maybe. You're telling me Christianity is not 100%
rigid in structure.
Persistent. And,
it doesn't enforce its rules equally. Crazy.
What a concept.
There are also, supposedly, those with close friends or relatives close to death will see single glowing eyes in the night that augur that someone is close to death and that there is mournful shrieking and awful things.
Single eyes? Just blinking the entire
Apparently.
time, winking at them.
Apparently. No one was quite sure why.
Sure.
Yes, and then as I was saying earlier, you'll talk about the Archangel Gabriel, and this kind of comes onto the noise of these creatures, the awful sound that they make, this kind of yelping, preening kind of noise that people hate to hear, or at least associate with them when they hear it. They say that in the 19th century, the noises were the hunting hounds of the Archangel Gabriel responding to the lash of the whip when hunting the damned souls on earth.
Okay, that's pretty metal.
Yeah, and that was obviously supposed to be the yelping, screaming, shrieking noise that they hear, because that's the other thing about Gabriel Hounds in general. It's not that you see them very often, which is why there's less people who are traumatized by the sight of a baby-headed dog.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for that.
But it's the noise that people tend to hear, a little bit like the banshee, as you brought up a few episodes ago. It's the noise that you hear that tends to kind of get people. Some people have rationalized the sound as to being bird calls, especially geese that are migrating at night.
You know, I wouldn't put it past geese to intentionally screw with people in that way. So, who knows?
Some of these explanations for where they have come from, how they came around, are still a little bit off. So, some of these explanations for how these creatures came around are interesting, but they still don't quite fit the narrative. Mostly because, like that one in Cleveland, that was apparently reported in 1886. But again, their name started appearing in 1665. The one in Derbyshire, there is no date attributed to it, but again, it is still a bit of a strange one. It brings in that kind of... It's still a bit of a strange one. It brings in this whole idea that priests curse people, and it just doesn't quite fit with the narrative. And again, it all relies on this idea that they were created by humans through their actions. And I can tell you, whereas I obviously don't know how they came to be, I am obviously very much a scientist type of person. Evolution would be my view. But some of these creatures do kind of,
Sure.
defy a little bit around evolution, or seem to have a bit of a strange way of evoluting. Seem to have a bit of a strange way of evolving. But my interactions with them, they're just a strange looking form of hound.
Okay, that's less exciting.
Don't get me wrong, they still sound absolutely awful. They essentially, the reason why they sound so bad is that they are a creature with human-like vocal cords, so they can shriek and yelp in disgusting ways.
Probably kind of baby-like to match the head.
Yes.
I imagine. Okay, yeah, that sounds great. But there's no hunting of damned souls involved or anything like that.
No. I mean, they hunt things, but it's not damned souls. They hunt food, which is kind of how I actually came into contact with them.
Just imagine you turn around and the last thing you see is just a very angry baby biting into your neck.
On 4 legs. Yeah, they are creepy. They are very, very creepy to see. And I got the opportunity to see them when I was still a very, very young warden. So I was moving around the UK a little bit with a small team. We had me, a fully trained but still quite young warden, supporting one of the proper seniors. Did you ever meet Johan?
In passing on the
Yeah,
corridor.
I think he's moved on from active field work now. But yeah, Johan,
Okay.
he was essentially my senior, so he was running the show a little bit like we are now. I was kind of his backup, second in command. I'll take on whatever needs to be. It was a very small investigative team, and then we had a proper rookie on site. We were just doing a real simple imp job. So we had an infestation of imps not far away in Derbyshire. And it was the first time that the rookie had seen imps, had come across imps, and as you know, they are rather prevalent. So it's one of the things you definitely need to be trained on. Luckily, there's never really been an issue getting people trained on those damn things.
Yeah, there's always something to do.
And so Johan was taking the rookie out, and I was just hanging around back with supplies, back with vehicles, and pretty much just keeping an eye on things, liaising with HQ whenever they called in, giving them updates, and was there just in case equipment needed funneling. Bit of a boring kind of duty, but at the same time, you gotta pay your debts, gotta pay your dues. I was just with the vehicles, and we got word that there were some odd sightings, odd noises being heard in a small kind of country village in Derbyshire. Johan just said, "Can I just go off to investigate, see if there's anything there?" Based on what we were hearing, it seemed like it was an absolute nothing. It was close to Halloween. There were weird noises.
Must have been the geese.
Must have been the geese. But we were close to Halloween. There were weird noises. There were weird kind of sounds happening everywhere. It was windy. All of that kind of thing. It's a perfect opportunity for weird noises and creepy sounds. But I was available, so why not?
It sounds like my dating profile.
We're going to move swiftly on. But it was late at night. This is not how you date.
Well, it could be.
Oh my god. But anyway,
Moving
it was about it was about 2 a.m. and when I arrived at the town, it was only about half an hour's drive away, which again, literally why they just sent me. And I started walking around the village late at night, obviously keeping things a bit quiet myself, because last thing you want to be doing in a small English village at 2 a.m. is drawing much attention to yourself. You just look like a bit of a weirdo, and you definitely get watched by the locals.
Yeah.
As you probably would anywhere, not just an English village.
I guess so.
Yeah. And what I found was, in this kind of village, there was a bit of an old person's care home,
Mm-hmm.
which started bringing a few little kind of alarm bells up for HQ. Around this time, we were still trying to work out if they were connected with people dying, and yeah. So that's what made HQ decide that they thought it was probably something like Gabriel Hounds. What I found was the trail of essentially a small hunt that had been going on. Just a few like hares that had obviously been hunted down by something. When I kind of came around corners and listened to noises, what I found was a pack of about 4 Gabriel Hounds behind, not even sure what it was, I think it was like a pub or something. And those 4 hounds were basically munching on a couple of hares that they'd caught.
Okay.
But I can't tell you how unsettling the noise is. Imagine like
the noise, the noise, and the sight. I mean, even my imagination is probably going to give me nightmares.
Exactly. It's essentially 4 baby-headed dogs whining while chewing on raw meat.
Oh god. How do I unhear this?
Yeah, that's how I felt. So phone signal was absolutely awful, and I couldn't get hold of HQ, and they hadn't given me any information on how you essentially contain or get rid of or move on Gabriel Hounds. And I was going to head back to my vehicle, try and raise HQ, see what I could do. It just wasn't going to happen because at that time the pub that we were behind, or at least the pub nearby, had just kicked out a group of people, and those people were obviously very, very drunk.
Yeah.
And started moving towards the area that the Gabriel Hounds were in. Now, again, remember, they are essentially hunting dogs. They're not actively out to hunt people, but they will protect their catch.
Of course.
So, whereas they don't hunt us, they don't hunt down humans, they will hurt and even kill a human that interferes with their territory or their aims or desires or whatever they're doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't sound great for the pub people.
No, it didn't. And I very swiftly came to the conclusion it was probably not a good idea to leave.
Yeah.
And this is where I basically tried scaring them off a little bit like you do with like a fox.
Okay.
So I started flashing lights, making loud noises in the proximity, trying to like encourage them to leave in the same way that, you know, any kind of creature that doesn't like to be seen or doesn't like to be perceived very much, make it think that it's more effort to stick around than it is.
Yeah.
Turned out that did absolutely nothing, and all it did was it drew them to this group of drunk people.
Well done. And that's the story of how Jack killed 4 people.
Oh no, this is the story of how I got into the habit of using myself as bait.
Oh no. It's almost worse.
I just went, well, there's not much else I can do here. I'm not armed because we were dealing with imps.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be a nothing case, so, oh god. I just ran straight through the middle of this pack of 4.
And everyone knows it's very easy to outrun hunting dogs.
I was trying to make some kind of plan.
Usually you do the planning before the executing.
Well, usually you have a little bit more time.
Fair enough.
Well, I also managed to grab one of the hares. And
Okay.
essentially, so I had one of their kills. I ran off as quickly as I possibly could, and yeah, they chased me. They decided I was worth chasing.
Yeah, sure.
Or at least I must have grabbed the tastiest hare that had ever existed. So I was running away, listening to the slightly wrong wailing of babies
No,
chasing after me.
I hate that so much.
And yeah, and I managed to get out of the town and head towards a stream with running water.
Yeah.
Because one of the kind of the basic tenets of some of these creatures is they can't cross running water.
Okay, is that true for these as well?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Hey, I was a relatively new warden. I was just grasping at straws. I was trying to stop these people from being
Great
eaten.
plan so far.
basically, I ran into this river at it was about 2:30 at this point, this river stream, and was just tearing through, trying to keep these creatures chasing me, but not actually catching me. I was changing directions. I had got some of the rope, climbing rope that we have in our packs and things. I'd had that just literally hanging off the back of
Everyone has
off my
50
belt.
feet of hempen rope.
Exactly. Every time one of them was getting relatively close, I'd start swinging it around and, trying to encourage them to stay away. But I very much did manage to get myself a little bit cornered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I expected as much. What do you do?
Well, luckily, what happened was, as I got cornered, and as they kind of started moving in for the kill,
Yeah.
at least I assume that was what they were trying to do, which, again, not something I was really looking forward to, being killed by 4 baby heads.
I don't think that's something anyone is looking forward to.
For many reasons.
So many reasons.
Well, it turned out that Johan had actually finished up with the imps and was coming back, spotted me doing my, bait work, and he pulled up in one of our 4x4s and he pulled out his bit of rope from the back of the car and managed to start cracking it like a whip.
Okay, that's a dramatic entrance.
Yeah, it turns out that whereas I don't believe, or at least we don't have any evidence that these are creatures of the Archangel Gabriel responding to the hunting whip, or any of these creatures that like to hunt, turns out they do seem to respond to the sound of a whip. And I don't know if it scared them off or encouraged them to leave, but essentially they made a break for it and ran away and left me alone.
Well, that's quite lucky there. Did you at least give them their hair back?
No. It was still in my hand, which, again, on reflection...
That's the story of why 4 dogs starved to death because of Jack.
Like I say, I just kept on running with the hair in my hands, so...
Yeah.
It was a bad idea.
Some say the entire bait thing is a bad idea, but somehow you keep getting away with it.
I was going to say it worked then, and it's worked ever since. I've got better at my bait.
That's great.
I go in with more of a plan.
Do you?
Sometimes.
I'm not going to question
I at least know where
further.
I'm running to.
That's something, I guess.
But yeah. But do you know what else is something you guess?
I guess that this is going to be a segue to our Discord advertisement, and the Discord is a great place to run to if you have hairs or not, or any other bait. You can run there and join our community to talk about episodes we have done, about creatures you'd like to hear about, because chances are Jack or I can tell you something about them. And you can just talk to a bunch of other weirdos who like to be bait. And where else do you get that? Only our Discord.
Exactly. Yeah. Only in our Discord, which you can find the link to in the description to this episode.
Yes.
And pretty much all other episodes. And speaking of all other episodes, feel free to go back and listen to our back catalogue of about nearly 30 episodes of us talking about various creatures we have worked with, or contained, or hunted, or found as part of the CCI.
Give us this juicy listening minutes.
Yes, the juicy listening minutes that make people say that they like this podcast.
Yeah.
And make them stick around for it even more and more and more.
Yes. Also, while you're at it, give us a great rating, or any rating, interaction is interaction as far as the algorithm is concerned, so do what you must, but we will send baby hounds after you.
Yes, we can always send the 4. I became good friends with them later.
Of course, as
I'm
Bait
sure.
tends to do. Also, of course, don't forget to subscribe, because we will have more disturbing creatures for you in the future, so you don't want to miss out on these.
Exactly. I think that's about it. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Thank you very much for nothing else to say, but goodbye.
Goodbye.